For over 6 decades, Robert Duvall was known as Hollywood's quiet professional, a man who never chased fame, never courted drama, and never spoke ill of anyone. But that silence just ended. In an interview that sent shockwaves across Hollywood, the 94-year-old Oscar winner decided to do what no one thought he ever would. He named the 4 actors he couldn't stand. 4 people who, according to Duvall, changed the course of his career and, in some cases, entire films. This isn't a petty list of grudges. It's the story of a man who built his legacy on discipline and integrity, finally setting the record straight before time runs out. Because for Robert Duvall, the truth had been buried for too long, and Hollywood had gotten too good at rewriting it. For years, Robert Duvall represented everything old Hollywood claimed to stand for: professionalism, loyalty, and respect for the craft. He wasn't a headline chaser, he didn't fight for the spotlight. But behind that calm, disciplined demeanor, there were memories he had refused to touch. Old wounds, old betrayals, the kind that never fully fade. According to people close to him, it wasn't anger that pushed him to speak. It was correction. For decades, he'd watched documentaries, retrospectives, and interviews rewrite history, painting false pictures of harmony and friendship that simply never existed. During a recent tribute to his legendary career, Duvall sat in the audience, watching old clips from The Godfather, The Natural, and The Chase. Each montage showed smiling faces and stories of camaraderie. But Duvall knew better. He remembered the fights behind the smiles, the power plays, and the people who tried to sabotage him when the cameras stopped rolling. As the crowd applauded, Duvall sat in silence. Later he told his interviewer, "I realized I'd spent 60 years letting Hollywood rewrite my story. I wasn't angry, just tired of the lies." That night he decided to break his silence, and when he finally spoke, the names he revealed left the entire industry stunned.
The credit thief, Dustin Hoffman. They started as friends, 2 hungry young actors sharing a cramped New York apartment in the early 1960s, surviving on coffee, cigarettes, and the dream of making it big. Robert Duvall and Dustin Hoffman were brothers in the struggle, or at least Duvall thought they were. But according to him, that friendship slowly turned into something else, a rivalry wrapped in deception. "I'd work on an interpretation for weeks," Duvall said. "I'd practice it in our apartment, every line, every gesture. Then Dustin would audition for the same role and use my exact approach." At first, Duvall brushed it off, but it kept happening. When Hoffman landed a role, he'd casually tell people Duvall inspired him. To Duvall, that was just a fancy word for theft. Even after they both found fame, the pattern continued. During True Grit in 1969, Duvall was filming alongside John Wayne, while Hoffman was working on Midnight Cowboy. Hoffman would call him often, asking for advice on accents and voice work. Duvall spent hours helping him shape Ratso Rizzo's character. Then he read an interview, Hoffman claiming he'd developed the voice by studying homeless people in New York. No mention of Duvall. But the real betrayal came a few years later, during the casting for The French Connection. Both men were in the running for the lead. According to Duvall, Hoffman went to the director, William Friedkin, and warned him that Duvall was difficult to work with. Friedkin told him this himself. "That," Duvall said, "was when I stopped picking up his calls." For years afterwards, they maintained a facade, polite smiles at industry events, the occasional friendly quote in interviews, but the friendship was over. And if that revelation shocked Hollywood, the next one cut even deeper, because it involved a man everyone thought Duvall admired, Brando. The destructive genius, Brandon Brando. Duvall never denied Brandon's brilliance. He called him a genius, but, as he once put it, genius doesn't excuse cruelty. Their most explosive clash happened in 1966 on the set of The Chase, a film filled with A-list names, Brandon, Duvall, Jane Fonda, and Robert Redford. Behind the scenes, though, it was chaos. According to Duvall, Brandon would deliberately change his performance from take to take, sabotaging continuity and making editing nearly impossible. If he didn't like the director's vision, he'd ruin everyone else's scenes. He called it protecting the art. I called it sabotage. Tension built until it boiled over during one of Duvall's key monologues. While Duvall delivered his lines, Brandon started making faint noises off camera, just loud enough for the microphones to pick up. After 5 ruined takes, Duvall confronted him. Brandon just smiled. "Maybe you should be stronger in your choices," he said. Duvall later said, "That was Marlon. He'd wound you, then make it sound like your weakness." For decades, Duvall still spoke respectfully of Brandon in public. He credited him as an influence, praised his artistry, even called him a pioneer. But behind the respect was a wound that never closed. And when the two were cast in The Godfather, Duvall's Tom Hagen and Brandon's Don Corleone never shared a scene together, a detail many now believe was no coincidence. "I learned more from Brandon than anyone else," Duvall said, but not about acting, about integrity. That confession stunned Hollywood, and yet it was only the beginning. Because the next name wasn't a mentor or a rival, it was family.
The rival brother, James Caan. When audiences watched The Godfather, they saw 2 brothers, Sonny and Tom Hagen. One hot-headed, one calm and composed, a perfect contrast. What they didn't see was that off-camera, those emotions were real. "Jimmy and I created one of the most believable brother relationships in film history," Duvall said, "and we did it while barely speaking to each other." Their tension began in the earliest rehearsals. Caan, known for his explosive energy, treated every scene like a competition. He was competitive to the point of malice, Duvall recalled. If I had an important line, he'd start fidgeting, making noise, or pulling focus just to dominate the frame. The breaking point came during a rehearsal with director Francis Ford Coppola. Duvall was discussing Tom Hagen's motivations when Caan smirked and said, "You're overthinking it, Bobby. You're just the family secretary." That one remark changed everything. "I decided from that moment Tom Hagen would always watch Sonny carefully," Duvall said. "That tension made it into the film because that's what a consigliere does with a hothead like Sonny." Decades later, Duvall admitted the irony. The reason that brotherly chemistry worked so well is because it was real. Still, they maintained public civility. Press tours, red carpets, reunion panels. Duvall never let personal resentment damage the film's legacy. "That's also acting," he said, knowing when to play the part off-screen too. But while his conflicts with Brando and Caan stayed professional, the final name hit deeper because it wasn't just about rivalry, it was about betrayal. The Golden Fraud, Robert Redford. If Hollywood ever had a golden boy, it was Robert Redford. Charismatic, intelligent, artistic, the perfect poster child for integrity. But according to Duvall, that image was nothing more than a well-crafted illusion. Redford built the perfect persona, Duvall said. The serious artist, the idealist, the visionary, but the man I worked with was something else entirely. Their clash began during The Natural in 1984. Duvall played sports writer Max Mercy, a cynical journalist investigating Redford's character, Roy Hobbs, the flawless baseball hero. The tension that played so beautifully on screen came from something very real behind the camera. According to Duvall, Redford would keep entire crews waiting for hours while he took personal business calls. Not rehearsing, not preparing, just delaying production because he could. That's not artistry, that's arrogance, Duvall said. But the real conflict came when Duvall discovered Redford was quietly lobbying the director to cut down his role.
Redford reportedly argued that Mac's mercy scenes were slowing the story, when in reality, they were the only moments that challenged his character's perfection. Duvall saw through it immediately. It became clear he didn't want anyone sharing the spotlight. It wasn't about the film, it was about control. The confrontation finally came in post-production when Duvall confronted Redford directly. According to crew members who witnessed it, Redford looked him dead in the eye and said, "You're a character actor, Bob. I'm a movie star. We're not playing by the same rules." That was it. That's when I realized the truth, the fraud behind the golden image. For decades, Redford's reputation as a principled artist remained untouched, but Duvall's words cracked that image wide open, because this wasn't coming from some jealous rival. It came from the man everyone in Hollywood called the most professional actor alive. And when Duvall spoke, people listened.
Within hours of Duvall's interview airing, Hollywood went into meltdown. Headlines exploded across entertainment sites. Robert Duvall exposes Hollywood icons, shock confessions from a living legend, and the truth behind the golden era. Representatives for Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, the only two still living, released polished statements. They expressed respect for Mr. Duvall's career and surprise at his recollections. But behind the scenes, insiders began whispering. Crew members from The Natural confirmed Duvall's version of events. A former assistant director from The Godfather said everyone could feel the tension between Duvall and Caan during filming. Even Francis Ford Coppola made a cryptic remark. The chemistry you see on screen often comes from complicated dynamics off it. And quietly, actors began reaching out to Duvall, not to criticize, but to thank him. One source said, "He said what many of us have experienced, but never dared to admit." For the first time, Duvall seemed unburdened. He wasn't angry, just honest. He clarified in a follow-up statement, "I didn't speak to destroy anyone's legacy. I spoke because history has been rewritten to the point of fiction. If I've given 60 years to this industry, I have the right to tell the truth about it." He emphasized that these weren't small disagreements or momentary clashes. They were sustained patterns of behavior that affected productions and people's lives. And he wasn't wrong, because for every polished Hollywood story about friendship and teamwork, there are untold stories of sabotage, envy, and quiet suffering. Stories no one dares to put in the spotlight. Until now. At the end of his interview, Duvall left one final, haunting remark. Those four stood out, but they weren't alone. It was a sentence that sent shivers through Hollywood. Was he implying there were more names, more hidden feuds, more truths buried beneath the red carpets and smiles? No one knows for sure. But what we do know is this: Robert Duvall didn't need attention, validation, or revenge. He had everything: the awards, the respect, the legacy. He simply wanted the record corrected. Because even the greatest industry in the world is built on illusion, and Duvall had seen enough of it. He once said, "Hollywood is great at creating myths. Maybe it's time we start telling the truth." That final line wasn't just about the four men he named. It was about all of Hollywood and the generations of actors coming after him. A warning, perhaps, or maybe a challenge. In the end, Robert Duvall's revelations didn't tarnish his reputation, they strengthened it. Because in an industry built on image and silence, he chose honesty. He reminded everyone that even in the golden age, brilliance often came with bitterness. That the greatest films weren't always born of friendship, but of friction. And maybe that's what made them so powerful. He wasn't trying to destroy legacies, just to remind the world that behind every masterpiece, there's a story we'll never fully see. Robert Duvall once said, "Even the greatest films are not always born of harmony." Now, as he reaches the twilight of his life, he's left us with one final performance, not on screen, but in truth.
And the question that lingers isn't why he spoke, but how many others still haven't.